got it bumping.
For Xbox's hugely expanded gaming division, anything that's not Call of Duty is now being considered a failure. And for me, that's a bit of a problem in gaming right now. Now, it's clear that when Microsoft completed the $75 billion buyout of Activision Blizzard in October 2023, which was last year, this fundamentally changed the makeup of its Xbox division. And I think in the process, it put all of its other studios in some kind of jeopardy, if we were to call it that. Now, we already saw the impact of this acquisition in January when Microsoft laid off about, I think it was 1,900 employees from the Xbox division. CEO Phil Spencer said at the time that the affected staff were in identifiable areas of overlap with the newly acquired studios. However, I suspect that the studios Microsoft closed this week were shuttered for an altogether different, but no less depressing reason, in the name of continued revenue growth. Now, purchasing Activision Blizzard has done more than put a huge debt on Microsoft's ledger. It's also significantly increased the Xbox division revenue. Now, that may not sound like much of a problem, but it does shift the scale of everything the company does and needs to do to continue growing and to continue chasing the bottom line. All of the studios Microsoft had previously bought, including Mojang, and then the $7.5 billion acquisition of ZeniMax Media, the publisher of Bethesda Software, ID Software, and Machine Games, they've all been dwarfed by that addition of Activision Blizzard at $75 billion. $75 billion. It still sounds strange to say that, but in order to satisfy shareholders, right, Microsoft must continue showing growth. And I think anything less than increasing revenues kind of looks like a failure on paper. And again, that'll continuously impact the company's share price. Now, we know this is on Xbox CEO Phil Spencer's mind because he said as much in March last year. I quote, "The thing that has me most concerned for the industry is the lack of growth," Spencer said. When you have an industry that is projected to be smaller next year in terms of players and dollars, and you get a lot of publicly traded companies that are in the industry that have to show their investors growth, because why else does somebody own a share of someone else's stock if it's not going to grow? The side of the business that gets scrutinized is the cost side, because if you're not going to grow the revenue side, then the cost side becomes challenged. End quote. Now, the problem Microsoft faces, and it was one of its entirely own doing, they put themselves in this position, is that it now owns a string of studios working on games that, when compared to Activision Blizzard's titles, will barely move the needle in terms of revenue growth. Now, this isn't a bad thing, because again, as a gamer, like I've always said, if a game is good, it's good. If a game is bad, it's bad. Like, screw all this, like, constantly chasing live service, chasing, like, the big name IP, all of that stuff. That's something that a lot of these, like, publishers are getting caught up in. And they're losing sight in terms of producing the passion projects and the games that we used to love, because now they're just constantly chasing the bottom line. And again, with their costs going up, they're constantly trying to chase, like, a cash cow that can equal whatever their input costs are going to be. And for a lot of, like, publishers, they're just not getting it. Now again, what was success last year has clearly been recontextualized by the new scale in which Microsoft is working to. The cost side of Tango Gameworks became challenged in light of an updated balance look. And again, we lost. Tango Gameworks was one of the studios that got cut because of this. Now, this puts every one of Microsoft's early acquisitions in a horrible position. Because again, they all make fantastic games, some of which have been massive hits for studios of their scale. But when you put them alongside a World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, they're all small in terms of the revenue that they can generate. Even if they are comparably better games, like, I wouldn't be lying if I said Hi-Fi Rush was a better game than probably the last, like, 6 Call of Duty games we've had released. But Hi-Fi Rush is not going to make as much money as the Call of Duty franchise. So again, even if it's profitable, how many copies will Hellblade 2, for example, need to sell for Ninja Theory's title to look like a worthwhile cost alongside the revenue generated by the next Call of Duty. It's just going to dwarf everything, right? Now, there's been little sense to Microsoft's strategy in the past decade, because it seems to simply acquire whatever it can lay its hands on, with little regard for the studios it already owns or the titles they're already working on. Now again, imagine being Obsidian. When it was acquired by Microsoft in 2018, it was put to work on a first-person fantasy RPG that would appeal to the same players as Elder Scrolls series. Although set in the world of Pillar of Eternity games, its shift in perspective effectively made it a new franchise. And the budget and sale expectations would have been set to that reality. Whereas in 2021, Microsoft acquired Bethesda and the Elder Scrolls series. Now, Obsidian is making a game that competes with another studio in its own portfolio. Again, when Avowed releases later this year, its earnings will sit on a spreadsheet that includes the game it has little hope of surpassing in its first iteration. Higher up on the sheet still, there will also be multiple Activision Blizzard games that are all earning significantly more in this big, bloated portfolio. So again, many of Microsoft studios are in a similar position. They're committed to multi-year development cycles of games that no longer live up to the scale of Microsoft's shareholder demands. And again, I will keep this specific. These are the shareholder demands, right? The bottom line is not being chased by the devs and the studios themselves. That bottom line is being chased by the higher-ups and the shareholder execs. Now again, as for Microsoft's other studios, I'm just not sure what confidence they can now have that they fit into the updated forecast of Xbox's future. And again, this is just something that I've been concerned about as a gamer, because like I've said again, all my criticisms of Microsoft and the Xbox don't come from a fanboy perspective, they just come from a general gamer perspective with regards to the outlook of the industry as a whole. And so whenever I criticize them for not making good games, it's because I'm criticizing the constant scaling of the costs, right? Because the more and more that they keep chasing these blockbuster games, the more and more they keep chasing these live service cash cows, and this goes for the entire industry, the more that the games are just going to lose their soul, right? And we don't want every studio to end up in, the cliche that I've always brought up on this channel, the Ubisoft position, right? Where Ubisoft just basically has started killing all their franchises by just releasing these cookie cutter versions of all of them to try and sell the most, to appeal to the most people, and all of their franchises keep losing the soul that made them originally what they were. Be it a Splinter Cell, be it Rainbow Six, be it Far Cry, be it Assassin's Creed, be it even Watch Dogs, one of their most recent franchises. The evolution from Watch Dogs 1, 2 to Watch Dogs Legion, the way they butchered that game is so because they kept chasing something that they couldn't attain, whereas if they had stuck to what they wanted to do with the original Watch Dogs, maybe the game would have still been a massive success now, even though Legion probably outsold the original Watch Dogs. It was such a bland nothingness game. Like I always use this example of the food. It's like just a McDonald's, it's such a generic ass meal, and people will still buy it because people are just looking for something to play. There has to be some sort of soul to all of this and like a wider plan. But yeah, I just figured I'd cover this topic for you guys today. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you think that any Xbox studio can still trust Microsoft right now? Do you think Microsoft's strategy right now is warranted? Or do you think it's a bit of an overreaction, how they're kind of treating Xbox? And what you guys think holds for the future of Xbox? Let me know in the comments down below, because that's another thing that we've been mentioning for years and years now, that the more and more their costs were going up, the more that they were making their actual console irrelevant, in the sense that they're trying to put all the games. Now the games are slowly coming to multi-platform, and they're pushing the subscription models to where it'll become like a whole Microsoft cloud gaming thing, where so if you own a PC, there's no real use for you to own an Xbox console, which again isn't a bad thing, but then it just makes the whole console redundant. And so now you start losing money on the console side, and then you start wondering why people aren't buying the consoles, and then it just turns into a whole cycle of their strategy is sort of just causing all of these problems, but then they're going to turn around and try blame the fans or blame the industry and all that kind of thing. Like it just seems very twisted on my part. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will be dropping a few more new style videos this week. I know I haven't recorded these in a long time, but I've been getting a bit of free time, so now that it's summertime, I will be able to do that in a lot more of my days off. And as well, I will try push out 2 video essays within the next month or 2, but still not sure. Like I have the ideas drafted out, but I haven't scripted them or anything like that, so we'll see how that goes. As always, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay dangerous, stay blessed, and peace out.